Welcome to Sales Velocity TV, where we pull back the curtain on how the top businesses in the world sell more with less resistance. Bringing over 50 plus years of combined sales experience and over 100 million in revenue generated, please welcome the hosts of Sales Velocity TV and two incredibly entertaining gentlemen, Andrew Cass and Aaron Parkinson.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. By the way, episode 50 is now here, my friend. We have hit number 50. We're a young show. We've hit number 50. I'm Andrew, that's Aaron. And number 50, Sales Velocity TV is upon us, and we're talking about how to promote like a pro today. We're going to share some awesome examples of essentially how to dominate your industry. You like the sound of that?
I love the sound of it. And, here's why it's important, because I think a lot of people are going to be like,
promotion.
Well, why should I do this? Why do I have to do this? Whatever. There's no have tos in life, right? But at the end of the day, there's just winners and there's losers, right? And I'm not calling somebody a loser if they don't want to do this, but if you're in the business world, the scorecard is real, right? And I think we talk about this a lot, Andrew, with a lot of our audience is sort of those small to medium size businesses. Right. And they're trying to take things to the next level. And I had a great conversation with somebody about 2 years ago where they said, do you know what your real role is as the CEO of your business? And to be honest, I didn't really know, because as somebody who's always bootstrapped my own businesses, I've got 90 hats on, right? You and I talk about this all the time. How do I take hats off, over time so that I can scale? And what he said to me is, if you really want to be a great CEO, your job is to be the world's greatest promoter of your business and service, right? Mm-hmm. It's to headhunt amazing talent for your business. And it's to create culture and community for both your team and your customer base. And that's it. It's not all the day-to-day grind stuff, the day-to-day grind stuff. Your goal should be to try to take as many hats off as possible. So today we're talking about one of those key elements, which is who are the great promoters that we see of their business, really, so that you can study them, you can follow them, you can see what they do, you can emulate, what they're doing to have massive success. Because I can tell you with 100% data-driven metrics, eyeballs equal sales.
Visibility, baby.
Visibility, right? The more people know you, the more you're going to make, right? And these people that we're going to be talking about today are amazing, and probably more importantly, amazingly consistent.
And equally as important, amazingly controversial, which gets an extreme amount of attention, which is a little secret we're going to release here in a little bit, is what really goes behind the biggest and the best and the most noticed promotions or promotional people. It isn't what you think, and it's definitely not what is taught in school in your marketing 101 or your advertising 101 classes. There is a method and a madness for promoting like a pro. We're going to talk about it today. We're each going to share an example of somebody that we know very well, because we're customers of the product, right? We're customers of the thing, and we've bought in, and we really also understand, because this is how you and I are wired. In addition to being a fan and a customer of the thing, by default, guys like us will look into the business model and the marketing and the advertising and all of the ways that they promote, because it's the industry that we're in. Most people don't notice it. We do. So what we're going to share is these examples of how icons do it, but not the Steve Jobs of the world, because I think those are multi-billion-dollar publicly traded examples that I think the average business owner can't relate to. You can look at what they do. You'll see some lessons in the bigger names that we'll mention. But what we did is we chose two individuals that we know well from being customers and fans of the product, and also using the products, right, that you can relate to as a business owner, because you want to figure out how to be the biggest, baddest, best promoter of your product and service, and you as the individual, the face of it, by the way, the personality of it. Otherwise, it is a battle to get noticed today. You won't get the eyeballs, and it will be tough to make sales. And this show is all about how do you make more sales? Well, guess what? It starts with visibility, and it starts with what you and I call being omnipresent in multiple forms of media. And that's what we're going to dig into today.
Absolutely. So we've got a big list at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that, of some of our favorites that you can follow, because everything is about there's patterns to everything, right? If it's working for a handful of other people, it's going to work for you, right?
Right.
But we're not going to reveal those to the end of the show. So there's your little cliffhanger, Andrew, to ensure people.
There's your suspense. So
listen to the whole
we'll
thing
give like
today.
the big list of some of the bigger players that, some are medium sized, some are really huge, and some are like the Steve Jobs of the world, where they're just so big that it might be too big of a leap for you. But the examples that we're going to show right now are pretty impressive from how they've attacked their industry and then ultimately made their industries better. So you have one, I have one. Interestingly, they're both in the, I guess we could say, fitness and sports industry. Yours is sports, mine is fitness. So that's interesting. These are also passions of ours, so naturally we're going to watch these promoters a little closer. So why don't you go first with your guy, and then I'll go next.
Yeah, my guy is bigger than your guy for now.
For sure.
I have to preface it with the hows and whys, right? So one of the best promoters in my mind, in the world is a guy by the name of Dana White. Dana White is the president of the UFC, which stands for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And a lot of people are going to say, well, I know the UFC. Like, that's not a business that's, aligned with me because, they're so big and blah, 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 blah. But what you have to understand is that the UFC launched 25 years ago. Andrew,
is that long?
That long.
Wow, it feels like it's like a 10-year-old enterprise. It doesn't feel that long.
And
25
most
years.
people are like,
didn't get the traction until probably the last 10 years, right?
Well, what's really crazy about the UFC is that it was started by a guy in Florida, not by the current owners. Right, he came up with the idea, and then he sold it to the Fertitta brothers and Dana White about 4 years in. And the problem is that when the UFC actually launched, mixed martial arts was illegal in, I think, everything but 8 states.
Is that right?
Yeah. So, and they weren't the big market states. The only markets they could really do it when we were like Vegas and like Alabama and these like really smaller marketplaces, and nobody would put them on TV, and they had to do pay-per-view everything. And in honesty, it was a disaster, right? And so the Fertittas, who own a huge amount of the casinos in Las Vegas, were the bankroll, and they said, we need a face for this thing that we're going to bring in that's going to have the elements that you need to be a great promoter. So they actually brought in Dana White. Now, the crazy thing about Dana White, I'm just going to share this because it's my show and I feel like talking about it, is you may not know this, Andrew, but Dana White had a boxing gym in Boston. He's a Boston guy like you.
Didn't know.
Right? And he actually was run out of Boston by the mob. So if you've ever seen the movie about Whitey Bulger, you know who Whitey Bulger is?
That was the one with
Johnny Depp.
Was Johnny Depp or Matt? Who was Matt Damon?
Johnny Depp played Whitey Bulger. So Whitey Bulger was the head of the Irish mob in Boston, and they walked into Dana White's boxing gym, which was making no money, like at all, like most boxing gyms do. And he basically said, it's time to pay your protection racket money. We're going to need $2,000 a month from you starting now. And Dana White was like, we don't have any money. What are you talking about? And we don't need protection, from anybody. We're a boxing gym. And he said, well, too bad. I'm going to show up tomorrow and you're either going to have my protection money or there's going to be a problem. And they, Dana White being Dana White, who's very abrupt, told him where to stick that.
Did he know it was the mafia? Did he know their presence, or was it just like he thought they were some tough guys?
He to a degree, based on what I've read,
he was just being a typical boxer and thinking nobody can get to me, right?
Exactly. So the next day they came back with some sticks and some other stuff, and they beat him within an inch of his life. They actually gave him tinnitus in one of his ears, which has never gone away, which is why in a lot of his conferences he can't hear out of the one side. Yeah, they beat him, as he says, within an inch of his life, and he got on a plane the next day and flew to Las Vegas. So, he ran. He's like, I can't stay or I'm going to get killed in Boston. So went to Las Vegas, kind of bummed around on a few people's couches. Mark Wahlberg, Floyd Mayweather, few different people till this opportunity was given to him. And basically what they needed was somebody that could speak the language of the fight fan. And the fight fan is a fairly, unique character, right? He needed to know the language. He needed to be controversial. He needed to draw attention. He needed to put butts in seats. He needed to collect eyeballs. And he has been one of the most consistent promoters of not only the UFC, but the fight industry in general, boxing and all of its competitors, and talking about the other competitors in his space, literally for 25 years. If you follow his social media, he has a massive following. And what's really great, and this is part of the equation that we want to talk about, is that he is very authentic in his opinion, which is often very controversial.
And often very important to stay relevant. Believe it or not.
Exactly. It's relevant, it's entertaining, it's disruptive.
Yep.
It's not for the faint of heart. The Fertitta brothers, who were very, very wealthy, said, "You just be you. We're not worried about what you say. We're not worried about who you offend, what feathers you ruffle, right? But we need enough attention to build this brand up big enough where governments will start to pay attention to us, so we can go and we can lobby and we can talk to them." And they did, and ultimately had to change a ton of rules. Like when it first started, there was no rules, basically. I mean, the only rules were...
God, it was brutal when it began.
There was no eye gouging. The only rules were no eye gouging, no fish hooking. That wasn't allowed. And I believe...
You got to be watching the live version to have caught the fish hook demo that Aaron just did. I mean, just go to the YouTube channel because it was good.
No fish hooking, no eye gouging, and I believe... no small digit manipulation, which means you couldn't just break fingers for the fun of it. Right.
Amazing. That
but what they understood is that to get to the level of public acceptance, they would need the media and they would need the government's support. So he was constantly lobbying, promoting, educating people on why this was not what they think it is. It is not human cockfighting. So that it got enough attention to get the sit downs that they needed with the regulators. And then they worked with the regulators. Like in the beginning, there was no rounds, right? So it went until somebody gave up. You'd fight 3-4 times in a night. It was a tournament style,
God.
Right? And they basically worked with the governments. They got rounds put in, weight classes put in.
Much like boxing, obviously.
Yeah, proper scoring put in. They basically followed the boxing model because that was a model that was accepted by the general public and the regulators. And over time, they got the acceptance because of his constant education and promotion that he was doing in every outlet that he possibly could to bring awareness to his sport. They've almost made boxing irrelevant at this point. And here's the thing. This was not fast and it was not easy. I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss out on is they think, well, how many places do I have to promote it? How many posts do I have to make? How many podcasts?
And how long is this going to take?
How long is this going to take? It's going to take as long as it takes. And I'll tell you right now, a minimum of a year before you start to see traction. Because I see it with our clients all the time.
Yep.
Right? But once the snowball starts building, it's almost impossible to stop its momentum. And it becomes this enormously powerful element. And I mean, there was a point, and they talk about promotion, talk about the risks they took, Andrew. I don't know if you know this, but they had done so many pay-per-views that were sort of making money, but sort of breaking even, that the Fertittas called Dana White about 4 years into their ownership and said, we're losing $1 million a week on this thing right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And they said, you've got 30 days to figure this out. And so he actually started, the Fertittas started talking to buyers. And there was a buyer, I think it was actually the original guy in Florida, if I remember correctly, that said, I will give you $2 million for this thing. Now, the Fertittas are losing $1 million a week bankrolling this thing, and they got the offer and they decided to sleep on it. And the next day they said, we're not going to take it. Figure it out. Stop the hemorrhaging. And they went to Spike TV. I remember Spike TV.
I do.
The network for men. And they said, we want to put a reality show on Spike. And Spike had the worst things on that channel, like the most egregious shows were on that channel. Even they were like, we're not putting this thing on television. We're not giving you money to produce this thing. So they actually said to Spike, what if we paid for the production for the show? Will you let us put it on your network? Which is insane. You don't pay for your own production to go on a network. They pay for it, and then they sell ads and they make money, right? So they ended up investing $9 million to do their own reality show, which was called The Ultimate Fighter, because they wanted to expose the characters. Again, this promoting. They wanted people to see the behind the scenes of what these people
wanted to share story.
And
they wanted to do it in TV media. There's the two lessons, right? So how do we get the story out there? And interestingly, why do we choose TV over the internet? We can talk about that.
Right. Well, at the time, the internet really wasn't.
What year is this is a better question.
Well, the crazy thing is the other day I heard that it's the 20th year anniversary of their reality show, The Ultimate Fighter. And then again, I was like, wow, I remember watching year one. I cannot believe this show has been running for 20 years. Here's the most insane thing. They couldn't even get any advertisers to pay for the commercial spots on the reality show. So they couldn't get the TV station to pay for the production, and they couldn't get advertisers to even run commercials, which is insane. So what they ended up doing was running their own commercials, advertising their own pay-per-view event. And at the end, through the goodness of God, or I don't know what happened, they ended up having one of the most unbelievable at the end of the show, two guys fight each other for the contract to get into the UFC. And it was one of the greatest fights of all time. And at one point, Dana White said 8 million people were tuned in watching the final fight because everybody was saying, you got to turn this on. You got to turn this on. This is crazy. And between the combination of that and them promoting their own pay-per-view on their own commercials that they were running on this thing, it just took off. It was the absolute pivot point. But you have to think about like how consistent and long and how much risk.
And frustrating, right?
And frustrating. And governments. And like New York only let MMA in 5 years ago. Like, I mean, the amount of things they've had to do to gather awareness to their product is astronomical. Now, what was the payoff? Was it worth it? I don't know. They sold to IMG for $6 billion 4 years ago. Right? It's a pretty good payoff. Right?
Big.
But it was a promotion machine to educate people on what they were doing, to basically educate them on why they were wrong about what they thought was actually happening, to educate them on it that it was safer than boxing. I mean, think about that. People are like, there's no way that this is safer than boxing.
Yeah, how'd they sell that one?
They had to educate, because it's true. They had to educate them that in boxing, because people take so many headshots. Yeah,
it's true.
Their brain swells, they get brain. People die from boxing every year. The UFC has never had a single person die in the UFC, ever. Right? Which is crazy considering the odds. But because the UFC, if you get hit, and you're not coherent, the referee will stop the fight. It's over. But in boxing, you knock a guy down, he gets 10 seconds to try and get himself back together just to get up and take more abuse, sometimes 2, 3, 4 times. And that kind of brain, so it's said to educate government and public on how this blood sport was actually medically safer than boxing. Like, this is all part of promotion, why your product is better, why it's safer, why it should be tried out, why it's more exciting, why
prove, right? They just have to keep proving their case.
And eventually they crossed the chasm. You know, they got to the point where everybody was watching it, and now they're still one of the fastest growing sports on the planet.
Yeah,
international.
It's big.
Training centers in every
Training
country.
centers, absolutely.
You know, the wealthiest athlete in the world last year was Conor McGregor. It wasn't Ronaldo. It wasn't Messi. It wasn't LeBron James. It wasn't any of those people. It was Conor McGregor, right? UFC athlete. Like this, they have pushed this thing to the point where it is a multi-billion-dollar monster. Now, granted, yeah, they started it 25 years ago, but was it worth it?
So a couple takeaways. The big thing for them was TV, right?
That was the tipping point.
My example that I'm going to talk about is going to be internet, so it's a good balance today. But sure. TV has stood the test of time, by the way. A lot of people immediately eliminate TV as an option nowadays, which is crazy, right? You look at all the different channels. We know people that have gotten movies or documentaries in Netflix today. It can be done, or Amazon Prime. Absolutely. It can be done
easily. You get a documentary
yeah,
Netflix
it's like today, if you want to publish and be omnipresent and be a master promoter, do you know that today more than ever, so here we are at the end of 2021, today more than ever, you can have a book published on Amazon in physical form in a matter of weeks, and you can have a documentary on the major Netflix, Amazon Prime, networks, Hulu, whatever, also maybe not in 2 weeks, but you can do it. And so that means the barriers have come down to publishing and production more so today than ever. And a lot of people don't connect that. They go, oh, I could never be an author. I could never have a documentary. But you can. And we're not saying to go do this, right? I will say on the show, everybody should have a book. To me, that's a no-brainer. Having a documentary or an actual production is obviously a lot more moving parts and a huger investment and a lot different, but super simple to do. There's just a process to do. There's a production, but having a book is a no-brainer. Having a show like this isn't that difficult, but producing a documentary is obviously more moving parts, but all more doable today than ever. So as a business owner who wants to promote and be seen in multiple different places, there are really no big barriers today like there were even 5 or 10 years ago, which should give great optimism to the business owner or entrepreneur that wants to be an icon. And that's what today's about. The last thing I'll say is how to promote like a pro is really how do you become an icon, so to speak, in the industry that you're in. You don't have to be an icon like The Rock worldwide and a movie star. We're not talking about that kind of an icon. You only need to be focused on being an icon in your space.
Correct.
That's your game if you're watching the show. Go ahead.
And the icon just comes from eyeballs. But like I was saying, you brought up a really, really good point when you were talking about the documentary on Netflix. What is really important for you to understand is that now I'm talking about digital channels, but this does relate to all other channels too. The Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Netflix, the Hulus, the YouTubes, they need inventory so badly right now. And in your mind, you might be going, well, what does that mean, inventory? What does inventory mean to Facebook, for example, right? There are so many people trying to advertise on Facebook right now. They don't have any slots left for advertising. You know, the news feed is where everybody advertised in the beginning. There's no news feed spots left. And that's why the prices are going crazy. There's no spots left in the sidebar. They need more entertainment assets to loop ads through to continue to grow. If you have an idea, a show, a documentary, anything, it has never been a better time to get in contact with these different outlets and pitch them on your thing, because they're the one that's in trouble, not you. They don't have enough inventory. Why do you think Facebook keeps buying things like WhatsApp and, companies like this? It's not because they want a messaging platform. They need more places to put ads.
Great point.
And your show is a place to put ads. Joe Rogan started his podcast for shits and giggles because he liked to talk about conspiracy theories and aliens and stuff like that. And last year he got $100 million exclusive deal to be on Spotify. Why would Spotify give Joe Rogan $100 million to be exclusive on there? Because they need the inventory to run ads.
And he has the eyeballs, biggest podcast in the world.
Right. We're on show 50 today. We're like, we got to have a show. We got to have something.
He's on like show 4050 or something, right?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't know about you, Andrew, but when I saw that today, I was like, really? 50? Like, it's gone by. Like, it was nothing.
Yeah, agreed.
To be honest, that means we've been doing this every week for over a year.
Pretty much.
Does it feel like a year to you?
Feels like about a year.
Doesn't to me. I'm just saying this because, in your mind, you go, oh, it's a big commitment. It's a bit, blah, 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 blah. And
you find reasons why not, right?
Yeah, it's been easy and fun.
Yeah, it is. And when you get into a routine, everything becomes routine and habit. So like anything, whether you're sending out an e-newsletter every week, whether you're doing a show like we do every week, whether you're doing a traditional podcast every week, whether you are running a live event once a month like I used to do for 8 years straight, never missed a month, 6, 7 years in a row, every month, 12 times a year, the show was on. That becomes habit. And as it becomes habit, it becomes more comfortable to do. It's like anything in life, working out, right? Spending time with the family. Once the habit gets built, the routine gets built, it becomes easier and easier and easier to do. So as a business owner and as an entrepreneur that absolutely needs to promote next level, you got to get into certain forms of media that require you to be consistent, because it's consistency over time that gets you noticed. The big lesson here, though, is you got to be willing to get in there and throw some stones also. That is the big thing I want to talk about here as we segue is these icons that we're talking about were controversial, and they had a product that usually was against mainstream. Here's the deal. I've learned this years ago. Whatever you see the masses doing, 99.9% of the time, you probably want to go do the opposite. That's just how you'll live a better life. I'm not saying that's the case all the time, but 99+% of the time, whatever the masses are doing, you probably want to do the opposite, right? You got to find something different and unique to do as a business owner to get noticed. Most people will say, okay, well, back in the day, everybody was running a newspaper ad, so I'll go run a newspaper ad. But then the contrarians would go run radio ads. And then when everybody was in radio, they might go TV. And then when everybody was in TV, they might have went to the internet. They keep finding ways to show up differently in different forms of media. That's what the step-ahead entrepreneurs do, is they find ways to show up differently in different forms of media that, frankly, there isn't a lot of people in because there's a lot of competition if there is, right? To crack the Facebook game today, Aaron, we can crack that code because we've been doing it for like a decade. But the average person coming in to do Facebook ads today, I mean, that's like the 800-pound gorilla that's most likely going to chew them up and spit them out. Right? It's brutal. It's brutal.
I want to make sure that people understand, like, I believe you should be in as many mediums as you can.
Yes, portfolio approach.
So even if it's hard, you should do it anyway. But it's not about the channel. It's about the decision to be the main promoter of your thing and to be consistent about your thing. Because once you start making the content, once you start actually being, the promoter of your thing,
once you're
at the right level, right?
Yeah.
You can syndicate that content across everything.
True.
You make one. I mean, how many places does this get syndicated?
At least a dozen places. Online, obviously all the podcast platforms and all the video platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple, Google. So combination of audio, video, right?
Goes out in Facebook groups, gets emailed out to subscribers.
Yep.
Get
blog
our
posts,
socials,
websites, mass attack, shock and awe, baby.
Right. So we do one show for an hour where basically you and I come on here, have fun, teach some stuff, make fun of some people, do whatever.
Talk smack,
and this gets replicated, syndicated is what the term is. Mm-hmm. But what it means is replicated across all these other channels. And here's the other thing. Other sites, websites pick up our content all the time, and they actually promote, hey, here are the top 10 podcasts this week. Yep. So there's other websites that we don't even know about that they need content, right? Again, they need inventory. So they'll grab our stuff and put up our stuff up on their sites just to have inventory to get eyeballs.
I think it's crazy today as if in your business, I say if I want to take it back. You must be a master promoter today to be able to build and scale a business. And you need to be willing to get out in front. And I think if you're that person that is out in front in your business, and sometimes you are or you aren't, right? Sometimes someone else is the out front person.
Somebody in there has to.
Somebody needs to be, because we've talked so much about humanizing and adding personality to the brand. And when that happens, think Steve Jobs, think Richard Branson. What would make What would make you think about like something as simple as a computer, Apple, or something as simple as, originally it was music, but then airplanes and everything with Branson. But those guys decided to be personality-driven CEOs. Eisner at Disney is one that comes to mind as well.
Elon Musk
is another great example. So just those 4 examples alone, those CEOs didn't have to go be big promoters, but the ones that did, when they put the face with the company, they were infinitely more successful. So you don't have to do this, but somebody needs to be out in front, I believe.
And here's the funny thing. Every one of them was authentic. They did not try to change their personality.
Nope, they were rough and raw.
They were authentic. Some of their stuff is ridiculously entertaining. Like Elon Musk is one of my favorite examples. I can't remember what car company it was. I think it was like Ford. It was maybe Ford.
Did he just abuse someone?
They put out on their social media, our plan is to be the biggest electric car manufacturer by 2025, and we're going to dominate this. And Elon went, and go Google this. He went and he replied to their social. And all he replied was, "Bring it, pussy."
That's what he wrote.
that was his comment on their social.
Oh my God. Yeah, he's rough and raw, right?
Now, most people be like, that's unacceptable for the CEO of a publicly traded company. But I'm talking about it on this show because it was authentic and hilarious. And I love
it. It obviously got a ton of attention, and he knows it.
Oh my God, yes.
And he knows it.
And he knows it.
And he knows
him going on Joe Rogan.
And no question it was by design. Did he go on the Joe Rogan show?
Joe Rogan smoking a fatty with Joe Rogan?
Elon Musk, he had Elon Musk on. So Joe Rogan can get anybody now.
Go back and watch the interview with him and Elon Musk talking about brain technology inserts and all this stuff, smoking a joint on his podcast. Yeah, and he took on one side, he took some major flack from investors in the corporate world because
he's publicly
they felt like
traded
a
now.
CEO shouldn't be smoking a joint, even though it was legal where he was and blah, blah, blah. They were like, that's not acceptable. He's like, I don't care. I'm Elon Musk. And on the other side, he gained a gazillion followers and fans of his product because he was just being – and now he had never had – according to him, he'd never smoked a joint. Joe was like, you want to smoke one? He's like, yeah, okay. Right? Like –
I did not know that. That is a priceless story.
Go watch it. It's hilarious, right? And because he's always been willing to just be himself and talk about the things that are important to him and talk about what he thinks is trash in the world, Yep. There's been so many shareholders that have said we should remove Elon Musk. The company would be worth so much more. They're insane.
It happened. Hey, it happened to Steve Jobs. But then, you know what happened next?
Yeah.
They realized how big of a mistake it was, and he was back in a couple of years. And if he didn't come back in that couple of years, the Apple that we see today wouldn't be the Apple that we see today, worth billions in cash. I mean,
it'd be like when you have
billions in cash.
When you're the enigmatic, controversial, opinionated, followed promoter of your company, you build more than business. You build a culture around what you're doing. Where much like Simon Sinek said, you're not trying to sell to everybody. You're trying to sell to people who believe what you believe.
Right.
When you get your messaging right and you're speaking to people who believe what you believe consistently over time, they're not just customers. They're fans, right? They're their own mini cult or culture, right?
Yes.
And they'll buy from you forever.
And they will turn off a lot as well. So in that model right there, you're going to need to be okay with a lot of people not liking you and pissing a bunch of people off along the way. I've never seen any of these big promoters do it where everybody likes them along the way. Like there's people that just despise Elon Musk. There's people that despise Jobs. There were people that
Dana White.
Yeah. And the guy I'm going to talk about in a minute is like the most hated guy in fitness right now, but yet he's probably one of the most successful. But that's the formula. Now, you can't force that formula, by the way. Some people will think, well, all right, I got to go out and break things. I need to go be controversial. I need to go no, you need to be your business model needs to already be that. That's probably one of the reasons why you started it, because you had a solution to a big problem that either you were experiencing or others were experiencing. So it's an authentic.
You just have to be authentic.
The controversial part, it needs to be authentic to go the distance. Otherwise, you're being controversial just to be controversial, and that just runs out of steam. Is what that does. It runs out of gas.
The reality is that everybody's so worried these days about offending someone.
Oh my God, especially today. My God, the snowflake culture we live in today is brutal.
And here's the thing, you'll see when you see stuff in the world, you'll see stuff that makes you say, oh, I could never say anything controversial. I could never speak my truth. Like whatever. Oh my God, the amount of blowback I would get, blah, blah, blah. The world is starving for people who are authentic right now because of all of this nonsense.
Yeah, you're right.
That's happening out there. When you see it, like you said in the earlier show, when you see people going one way, go the other way, right? I mean, look at some examples of people that were just off the charts as far as who they rubbed the wrong way. The Trumps, the what's that guy's name who got canceled off of YouTube that talked about the Sandy Hook shooting? Like I don't love all of these people, but the people that do love them are like
zealots.
They're zealots.
Yeah, they are. You know who's a big one right now too, which I probably could have talked about, but I won't. It's in the same space. You know, my interest in my study hours go to fitness and nutrition usually, but Joe Mercola, Dr. Joe Mercola, I don't know if you know who he is.
I know that.
I have followed Dr. This isn't my example, but I'll mention it quick because you brought up the attacks. But I have followed Dr. Joe Mercola for 25 years. And he started off as a traditional doctor, then went functional, big nutrition guy, great promoter, the shows, the books, the whole 9 yards, everything we're talking about. But he's a guy that has consistently and authentically attacked the pharmaceutical industry since the beginning of time. He's taken the most heat right now because of COVID, and he's obviously attacking pharmaceutical companies right now for rushing this whole thing out, which I agree with. But he has been consistent for 25 years. Like he's attacked all the big names because he felt that they were all just, I mean, again, this is an industry that has over $10 billion in lawsuits for deceptive marketing practices and adverse events. So he wasn't from, he gets coined as this conspiracy theory controversial guy, but at the end of the day, he's attacking an industry that's probably hurt mankind more than any other. He was just being authentic about it. The important thing is saying, hey, we can probably solve this problem with nutrition, supplementation, and lifestyle that you keep ramming medicine down people's throats for. That's all he's ever done. Obviously, now it's, now more than ever, he's like censored from all the, he's like offline right now because of everything that's going on. I mean, God forbid.
But you know what?
That's not my example, but that's an example.
His people will buy whatever he sells for the rest of his life. Wherever he goes up, whatever he does.
He just launched a book that's an immediate bestseller. So There you go. So back to the authorship thing. But the guy that I want to bring up today, and this is a great example, and it's I consider it a grassroots example because our audience here is small to medium-sized business owners, not Fortune 500 company business owners, right? So you got to find things like the Dana White thing is a good example. And this guy by the name of Dr. John Jacquish, he's the creator of the X3 bar, which is a training system that I've been on for about 15 months now. I think you have it as well. Just about everybody I know uses it because I've recommended it to so many people. I wish I got paid for the amount of people I've put on the X3 bar. But this guy, John Jacquish.
Send us something. Come on, John.
Listen, they don't even have an affiliate program. I'm so annoyed. I'm like, do you have any idea how big of an affiliate I would be? Because I have like transformed my entire body and being because of this thing. But really what I want to talk about is the business model of the X3 system. Here's what he did, though. He wrote a book called, now, first of all, let me preface. So his training system is a titanium bar, like almost like a little mini Olympic bar that you'd see in the gym.
I'm going to go get it.
Yeah, why don't you grab yours? Because I'm in my office and yours is nearby. So if you're watching the show live, we'll actually show you what it looks like. This is a great plug for the show, for the system, but really it should be because it's probably one of the best training regimens I've ever seen. That's the platform that you stand on. And the reason that platform is there because heavy duty, super high load resistance bands attached to it. And this allows you to get 300, 400, and 500 pound loads training with bands, which was unheard of until he created the system. There's no other system that allowed it. So there's a titanium bar, which you can connect, and that's a medium-sized band that probably would get you about a 100-pound load. But you get the point, right? You see there's a titanium bar attached to a plate that you stand on. So you're replicating like powerlifting without the weights. And he created this. Now, the reason that he was able to create this, Aaron, I don't know if you know this story. Half the stuff you just told me about Dana White, I had no idea about. So you're about to learn some stuff too.
Right.
Which makes this interesting. So this guy created a breakthrough osteoporosis machine. That was his business as an engineer. Really fascinating story. I've read all his stuff, read his books. And that's where he got his start. His mom had osteoporosis. So he was like, I got to find a solution for my mom. So he created an osteoporosis strength training machine called like OsteoPro or something, became the biggest device in the world. He partnered with Tony Robbins on it because I think Tony Robbins had some issues. And eventually these called OsteoStrong, I believe. These OsteoStrong machines ended up becoming franchised, and they're like in 300 locations around the world, like in rehab clinics and chiropractic clinics, the OsteoStrong machine. So somebody could get...
And probably was totally opposite of what every doctor was telling people to do.
Of course, man, of course. So every doctor was like scratching their head. I want to prescribe medicine. They can't do any real exercise because that'll make it worse. Meanwhile, he's like flipped that whole thing over, and he's created breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough case of people recovering from osteoporosis, or at least being able to deal with it, because he was able to get their strength training aligned in a way where it wouldn't put loads on the body, but would build strength in the back and through the bones. And obviously it's a bone disease. And it worked phenomenally. And now it's franchised and licensed and patented all over the world. So as he was developing that, he's like, maybe I could apply some of this engineering technology and some of the science to like strength training. So he created the X3 bar system that we just talked about and you just showed. And that system now completely attacks traditional weight training. So the guy goes out and writes a book called Weightlifting is a Waste of Time. But so we're talking, I've been in the gym since I'm 14. How are you going to get me at 48 years old, or 47 at the time, to buy into the fact that I have wasted my time for the last 4 decades? So I'm immediately insulted.
And
right?
got your attention.
But you got my attention, right? And I'm like, variable resistance bands, of course I've heard good things about it. I'm immediately open to it because Tom Brady shifted his training to variable resistance bands 10 years ago. And here he is at 44 looking like he's 24. So you have me because of Brady, but you don't have me because you insulted like my way of life weight training for a long time. This book is now a bestseller, 200 plus scientific studies on how variable resistance training can get you better loads, better results, bigger and stronger without the risk of injury, by the way, which is huge. The weight training thing is, with free weights flying around, that becomes a huge risk as you get older in life, as you know, right? So he was able to, just like the Dana White story, Aaron, he was able to attack an industry, prove his case, back it with science because he's already a scientist and a PhD, and he has the track record of OsteoStrong already, and literally go out there, and he has fitness trainers online. Like, they call him like the meanest, most conspiracy theory, evilest guy in the world because he's attacking traditional fitness. Now, his big claim in the book, which is interesting, he's like, the fitness industry is a colossal failure. The fitness industry as a whole has produced so few results for so many people that his angle is attacking weight training, but also attacking the fact that there is no track record at all for people who weight train or do traditional fitness because they're doing cardio and boot camps and this, but nobody's body really changes. So you get into this thing and you follow it, and I've obviously been a project myself, as you know, for 15 months and got in better shape at 48 than I was at 38 and 28 at 48 years old, with more muscle mass than I've ever had and the lowest body fat I've had since college from this one training system for 14 straight months consistently, documenting everything along the way because that's how I am. You know, I'm a nerd with the science and the research. You're like don't use me as an example because I'll go spend 200 hours researching it. I'll find the good, I'll find the bad, I'll find the conspiracy theories, and of course I'll come up with like the real answer. Which, by the way, really important point.
When you talk about something fitness related, you have to understand like he's insane. Like he'll go do all of the he'll go to the doctor and get all of his initial baselines done. And then he'll remove everything else he's doing. And then he'll only do that one thing so that no other variables can be tested. And then he'll go like every 2 months to get all of the tests done again because he does not believe in opinion, right? So when he says, I'm in the best shape ever, he's not one of those people that like, there's so many guys at 44 that are like, I'm in the best shape of my life. And you're like, no, you're not, right? And he will actually go and get the data to support the argument.
You are, not to sound arrogant or cocky, but you're spot on. I will spend the money, invest the time. That's a big lesson, by the way. I'll invest the money and I'll spend the time to get the result. And most people will not do either. They want the result, but they don't want to invest the money or spend the time. So in that example, I did. But most importantly, from a business standpoint, the promotion of what went on here to come into an industry to bring variable resistance training to light, which again, Brady brought it to light, but not on a big scale.
What? I was always like, Those bands. Those bands.
Yes, because you're thinking traditional bands, but what he did is he created a system to get the bands into, which you just showed. So, by the way, if you are listening to the podcast, go to salesvelocitytv.com and you can see the episode. We do everything live on video first, and you'll see Aaron doing 52 deadlifts. No, I'm kidding. You'll see Aaron holding the titanium bar and showing the metal plate that allows you to get 2, 3, 4, 500 pound loads into bands, which create a dramatic effect on the body, and it's significantly safer is the point. But from a business standpoint, think about the way he promoted this. He attacked the total industry. He attacked the full industry. The fitness industry hates him because, and the big thing is, this workout is 10 or 15 minutes, 4 or 5 days a week. So like now the industry's really pissed off because they got to sell you an hour workout. We got to, I can't really sell a personal training program if it's over in 40 minutes. That's like one workout for me, but I'm working out and I'm doing it. It's so hard. I do it every other day. I'm not even on it every day. So for me to be working out, and my workout's long, but the X3 workout itself, it's probably 15 or 20 minutes. Like the actual time under load for me is probably, 10 or 15 minutes, I should say, right? So the time efficiency, the ability not to get hurt, and the fact that you can go the distance longer is absolutely huge. And the industry was completely beside themselves. They still are, by the way. This guy has more enemies, more trolls following him along the internet. And then to top it all off, he said, you know what? I'm going to develop an essential amino acid product that's also going to attack every single BS amino acid product on the market. He has a product called Fortigen, which is amazing, which there's a process for how he gets the essential amino acids in the most usable, digestible form. He breaks that science down as well. Every amino acid manufacturer is completely pissed off now as well because he attacked them with his supplement.
But how is he as a promoter? Not just the
That's where I'm going
which
next.
is controversial, but
that's where I'm going next.
Promoter?
And here's the key.
I don't follow him.
Yeah, here's the key. Get into this. Once I get off on these tangents, you need to keep me focused with the whole fitness thing and the nutrition thing and the science thing. So just if I go on a tangent, I got you to bring me back to earth here, right? Which you've done a good job of. But here's the problem they had at first. He didn't want to be the face of this thing. He just wanted to roll out a machine like a lot of companies do. And just,
never going to happen.
And they didn't get the traction, Aaron. So then he was like, do I get an actor? But then he was like, I don't want an actor because then it looks like I have an actor, and I don't want to have an actor because when you have an actor, it's kind of like you're not really authentic because you put this fitness guy on there who's been working out for 40 years and he's been doing X3 for 2 months, and it's kind of like a bait and switch. He didn't feel authentic about it. He didn't feel real. Really good guy. Like I've really listened to a lot of his stuff and read everything he's done. So he's like, I guess it's going to have to be me because I've been using the system privately for 2 years and I've gained 40 pounds of muscle and took my body fat from 20% to 10%, and I look like an Adonis.
He's a specimen.
He is, from this one thing. So there he was as the business, and this is a great way to leave off today, right? As a business owner, most times we see, and we deal with tons all over the world, they will always be apprehensive to be out front. He was too. Eventually he got past that. He is now the face, the personality, and the actor out front for the X3 system. He's a specimen himself. So he has walked the walk, talked the talk, did the work. And he is the most authentic example of someone who had a vast background in developing strength training products, think OsteoStrong, and then this one, put himself through it, got the result, made the mistakes, did the science, proved it, and said, I'm going to be the one out front authentically pitching this thing, and I'm going to go everywhere. Podcasts, shows, TV, internet, radio. This brand is everywhere right now. It is now the number one selling piece of fitness equipment right now. That could change. Obviously, there's new stuff that comes up, but as we're doing the show, it's at least top 3 number one selling piece of fitness equipment because of the results that not only he got, but then the testimonials that pour in, that are on YouTube, that are on the internet, that are on the website are unbelievable. I mean, this is like a phenomenon with the amount of testimonials you see coming in. So the thing I want to leave off with is you or somebody really good but authentic needs to be out front. And secondly, when you nail it like Dana White nailed it, when you nail it like John Jacques nailed it, the testimonials and the case studies will pour in. And when they do, it's over. Because when you're not the one selling and now all of a sudden your customers are the one selling, and if you go look at that brand online, you'll be like, the company doesn't even sell this product anymore. This product is specifically now sold by its customers. And by the way, that's how UFC is as well. So 2 really good examples of how when you hit the what I call the, what do we call that? I'm drawing a blank here. When you hit critical mass, in business.
Tipping
point, critical mass, blue ocean, whatever we want to call it. When you hit that, it's oftentimes because what you've done is so big, so visible, and so good. You got to be good. The product has to be amazing, right? The deliverable has to be amazing, that the customers will ultimately take over and begin selling it for you, and you're gone. I mean, scalability, you're gone. You're into the millions, hundreds of millions, billions, whatever it is for you, you're gone. And that's exactly what's happened with both these examples, which is fascinating.
And here's before we give you a list of some of the people you can check out where you'll see exactly what we're talking about, because we teased this a little bit at the beginning of the show. I want to say this. If your ego is concerned right now, I don't know how I look on camera, I got too many pounds, I'm starting to lose my hair. I get that. That's just me.
You should do a show on that.
I don't like my background, blah, 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 blah. I want you to know everybody sucks in the beginning. Every one of my clients, if you look at what they did in the beginning versus where they are at their end, it's literally like a different planet.
Yeah, it really is.
Right? If you look at the first year of X Factor, remember that? What was the big music one? Was it X Factor?
There was a couple.
There's America's Got Talent. There was X Factor. There was I'm thinking about the first one. The first big music one was Simon Cowell.
It's coming to me. I can't.
Their first production, their first year. If you go look at the first year of the shows, it's a horror show. It looks like the cheapest thing thrown together in mankind.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
If you look at Dana White's first interviews and stuff like that, he's balding. If you know Dana White now, he's jacked and he's got a shaved bald head and he's got his stuff together. He's got bad suits and bad hair, and he's not talking very well. He doesn't have it together. We all suck. Okay? We all suck in the beginning, and you get better. So don't allow your fears to stop you, because the more you do it consistently over time, it's just like anything, you just get better at it.
Yeah, I mean, we could go back to this first show, and it's probably, I know for a fact that the production value is crap compared to today, because we're constantly tweaking, and frankly, we don't care, and you shouldn't care either, because you just need to be out there. And if you care about every little thing, you're going to be roadblocked and detoured every step of the way. So at some point, good enough is good enough. Perfection is an enemy. It's all, I'm a perfectionist, but I also am conscious enough to know that being too much of a perfectionist will become the enemy of success. You have to be cognizant of all this. You have to be greatly aware of all this. Awareness is key, right? But you'll find ways to roadblock yourself. You'll find ways not to do things. I'm a big believer in getting out there and just making mistakes. I mean, if you and I are perfect examples, because we've been on stage and on the internet for 15 years straight. And we are the same guys on video. We're the same guys on the phone. We're the same guys at dinner. We're the same guys on stage. We're the same guys everywhere we go. Nothing changes with you and I. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because we just went out and we're just ourselves. And if you can just go out and be yourself and not think you have to be someone else or all of a sudden become an actor or an actress, then you're free. You're liberated. You can go be you, and you can promote your business or promote your business with someone else, or it's a liberating feeling when you don't think you need to be who you're not.
Agreed. So let's give people some great examples to go check out, and then let's wrap up the show for today.
For sure, check out our two examples, right? Dana White, UFC.
Go check out Dana White and check out John Jaquish. Some other ones that come to my mind, Gary V, which stands for Gary Vaynerchuk, Richard Branson, Elon Musk. The Rock is a funny one to watch because he was an actor, but he's really transitioned over the last year into building and promoting his own brands, his Terramana tequila, his clothing line, his whatever. You can start to see how he weaves that in. Grant Cardone, Dave Ramsey, Damon John from Shark Tank, Simon Sinek, Peng Joon, Neil Patel. Those are just a few that come off the top of my mind. I don't know if you've got any extra ones you want to add, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple come to mind for me. For me, I stay in sort of a smaller box than I probably should in the fitness and nutrition world. But Tom Brady's a big one for me because he's the only athlete I've ever seen that went out and built a massive nutrition and fitness brand while he's still playing called TB12, and we did a whole episode on it. I've never seen that happen. I've always seen that stuff happen after someone retires, not while they're playing. So that was interesting. And the way that they position that is really important because when you got a guy who's still playing well at 44, there's a method to the madness, and the TB12 method is the method. And the way that's being promoted, it's tough to not buy into that. X3, obviously, I talked about today, is a good example. Dave Asprey was a really good example because he started the Bulletproof brand. And his whole brand began with just a cup of coffee with butter and MCT oil. Like, it wasn't even a product. It was just a concept, a philosophy, and it turned into a multi-million-dollar brand called the Bulletproof Executive, which I don't know if he's a part of anymore, but that was a really good disruptive example of how he, again, attacked the high-fat industry, right? So the whole low-fat, no-fat thing back in the 90s, Aaron, was a complete farce. It was another mistake by the food industry. And now we know that... It wasn't a
mistake. It was a calculated mission.
Oh, yeah, probably, right? It wouldn't surprise me today. But he went out and he said, listen, good fats, quality fats, the things that have been like put on TV as you never want to touch, butter and oil, are now some of the healthiest things. Granted, they have to be sourced well, right? Are some of the healthy things you can put in your body. And he proved it with the science behind Bulletproof Coffee, which ultimately allowed him to dovetail that philosophy into a brand. So those are the three that come to mind for me. And of course, you could go study the Steve Jobs of the world. He's a really good example. Bob Eisner, Disney. These are the bigger publicly traded examples. I read Tiger Woods' book recently. The book is called Tiger. Tiger completely disrupted the game of golf. And the story behind how he did it is fascinating as well. And it became a very good branding example also. There was a tremendous amount of business and branding in the actually, it's a biography, not an autobiography, in the biography of Tiger called Tiger. It's a big book, 400 pages, but man, what a story on how he really put golf on the map when it really wasn't on the map. So a little bit of a twist. So there's a lot here for you guys, and we'll have the show notes down below here shortly when you head over to salesvelocitytv.com. But you got to study the greats, and you have to study the ones who are out front. And right now, what are they doing right now that's working well? And don't be afraid of controversy and going the other way, right? We're so wired to play it safe today and to just buy everything at face value. It will cripple you in life, folks, I tell you. Taking everything at face value, staying safe, following everything that you see, being plain vanilla, copying what everyone else is doing in your industry, not trying to be different, not trying to shake things up will hold you back for a long time.
Agreed.
I'm going to leave it there, man.
Let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. This one's a wrap here today. Again, all episodes are at salesvelocitytv.com. When you're over there, you can download the audio version of the show. We're on at least 5 or 6 different podcast platforms. And hey, if you like to do the live thing, which is what we're doing now, every Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern at the Sales Velocity TV public Facebook page. Just go search it at Facebook. And we will see you, folks, in the next episode of Sales Velocity TV. This one's a wrap.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Sales Velocity TV is powered by Pipeline Pro, the ultimate all-in-one sales pipeline management and marketing automation platform that makes all others obsolete. And we can prove it. Take a tour at gopipelinepro.com. See you on the next episode.